So, are you ready, Harsh?
Yes. But what are we ready for?
Ready for harvesting, threshing, winnowing. Because your crops are already ready.
Okay, so let's do this.
After the manuring that was being done by the natural method of field fallow and crop rotation and mixed crops, we had also discussed that how by using fertilizers and manures we can add the manure to the crops. Then we had discussed about the methods of weeding, irrigation, and now that the crops are ready after spraying the fungicides and pesticides on them, let's see what is harvesting, threshing, and winnowing. Now, once the crop matures, it is harvested. Basically, harvested means it is cut.
Okay.
And gathered. This may be done manually by using a sickle. Can you see the sickle here?
I sure can.
Or by using a machine which is called a harvester. Next, the grain is separated from the cut crop. Once your crops are on one side as a heap, you start separating the grain, and the process is called threshing. Now, this threshing again can be done either manually by making oxen or buffaloes, they trample over the cut crop and they enjoy walking on that. Or it can be either done by a machine again, which is called a thresher. Do you know a farm machine called combine is used for both harvesting and threshing? I think that is why they gave it the name combine. Because it's a combination of harvesting and threshing. It's serving the dual purpose. After threshing, the grain has to be separated from the chaff. What is a chaff?
Is it the outer covering of the grains?
Yes. This can be done manually with the help of the wind. Then it is called winnowing. See? Can you see the diagram for winnowing? This farmer is holding the grain at a height and then he is shaking it in the direction so that when the wind will blow, the husk is settled on one side and the grain which is heavier falls down and makes a separate heap. Okay. So, this mixture, when it is dropped on the ground from a height, the heavier seed falls almost vertically down, whereas the lighter chaff gets blown away by the wind and it falls at a distance. Am I clear, Harsh?
Yes, I would like to add another point. Yes. The same process can be done by a machine called the winnowing machine.
Yes, wonderful. So, the farmer has got a choice. Either he does a hard labor with the hand for the harvesting, threshing, winnowing, or if he is a rich farmer, he can use the machine for doing that.
Yes, the combine and the winnowing machine.
Yes. So, after harvesting the crop, often what happens, the stubs are left in the field, which are then burnt by the farmers. This causes pollution in the atmosphere. And although the farmers are advised not to burn the stubs in the fields, but they do it. Do you know, on the borders of Punjab, Haryana, every year during the winter when the harvesting is done and when after threshing and winnowing, these stubs are burnt, there is a huge pollution. There is a fog because of the winter, and then comes the smoke of this stubs being burnt, and together it forms a smog, and it's a huge problem. It causes so many breathing troubles to the people living there. Next, after this hazardous smog created by burning of the stub, comes the storage part of the harvested food grain. Normally, what happens, the food grains contain moisture more than that is required for the storage. So the excess moisture has to be removed by drying the food grains in the sun. Okay. Now, the grains can now be packaged in bags or bins and then stored. Do you know what are the large-scale storage of grains known as?
Yes, they are known as silos or granaries.
Yes. And can you just push the grain into the granaries?
No.
What is the initial preparation to be done before storing them?
First, they have to dry them in the sun because there will be excess moisture, as you said earlier. And the second is they have to...
The granaries have to be prepared. They have to be made microbe-free. Insects should not be there. Rodent-free it should be. And so they need to spray the chemicals. I don't know how much use of chemicals these farmers have to make for every step. So before storing the grains, again the spraying of chemicals in those granaries has to be done.
I don't know.
And the grains should be periodically inspected to ensure that they are not attacked by the rodents and insects or microbes. Since grains are harvested once a year, they need to be stored safely. They are like treasures of the farmer, you know. And in practice, however, an extra stock, which is called a buffer stock, is always maintained so that the grains are available in plenty even if there is a shortfall in the production in a particular year, or maybe because see, most of our farming is based on monsoon, and what happens if there is no rain in one particular year? So they have to maintain a buffer stock of it. Okay. Now, this was about the storage, and now we are going to discuss some important thing today. That is increasing crop produce. See, should we take a break?
Yeah, we should, I guess.
Have a break.
And we are back from the break, so let's continue.
And now we are going to discuss about increasing the crop produce. Now, to feed the ever-increasing population of our country, do you think that the crop that has been produced in the year is enough?
No.
So, then we have to think on the methods of increasing the crop production. What are the few methods? Can you suggest some?
I guess.
How can we increase the crop production?
I guess by providing better storage.
Better storage. Then can we not increase the land under cultivation? But there is a limit to it. We can't keep on extending the land for cultivation. There can be many problems.
What will we use for other needs?
Yes, because we have to then cut down the forests to get more land for farming, and this might lead to greater environmental problems
like a famine or deforestation.
Yes. Can we think on some improvement in the methods of agriculture?
I can't think of it, but let's continue in the book what the book has to say.
Yes, the book says that there are suitable alternatives to increase the crop produce, that is by providing better irrigation facilities, proper use of manures and fertilizers, use of natural methods of replenishing the nutrients in the soil. Then we can also use better methods of protection from weeds, pests and diseases that are being caused by them, and also increasing the use of modern agricultural implements. Basically, it needs to improve all those methods and steps that we have discussed in our previous lesson, methods of crop production. So now, to increase the crop produce using it can also happen through a better variety of crops. Cannot we select a higher yielding variety and which is also resistant to disease?
Yeah.
Do you know how is it possible? And in the future, this is the only technique by which the crop production can be increased. This is done by a process called plant breeding.
Okay. What is breeding?
Breeding means producing offsprings. You know, the scientists have controlled the reproduction in plants and animals so that they have the required characteristics which make them more useful. And, you know, hybridization is one such technique that is used for developing new varieties of crops. They crossbreed the two different varieties. Suppose the scientists want to develop a new crop which have got some desired characteristics. Suppose they want that the crop that they grow should have a high yield also, and they should be resistant to disease. Now what will they do? It is very, very interesting. Listen to it very carefully. Now they will select two varieties. Okay. One having high yield and the other being more resistant to the disease. Now they will crossbreed between these two varieties, and after lot of such experiment, they will actually come to the desired characteristic. See what they will do. They will prevent the self-fertilization. They will take a high yielding variety. Now they will cut the anther of remove the anther from this plant. That process has got a special name. The removal of anthers from the plant is known as emasculation.
Okay.
Masculine is male, no, and anthers are male. So removal of anthers from the plant is called emasculation. Now, what will happen? Then the pollens from the variety, suppose it is a resistant to disease variety. So now pollens from that variety of plant will be transferred to the stigma of these emasculated flowers, and the first variety of plants will be obtained. Now, as I told you, this process has to be repeated for several generations. Okay. And then you get the desired characteristics in the seed. Now, the seeds that you will get this way, which is of a new variety, they have again got a special name. That is stalk. Okay. Now, once this is achieved, scientists may try to develop another useful characteristic like greater resistance to the pests. Producing plant hybrids can be a long and tedious process. That is the disadvantage of it. Have you heard the name of Green Revolution?
No.
During 1960s and 70s, India had brought about this green revolution by importing high-yielding varieties of wheat from Mexico. You know, and these varieties, besides giving high yield, they were shorter in size and stronger and had better response to the fertilizers.
Can I correct one point of yours?
Yes.
As you said that India got the high yielding varieties from Mexico, but it was wrong. It was given to India by Mexico.
Whether somebody gives it or you buy it, you are bringing that variety.
We have it, that's the point.
Great, Harsh. However, there was some disadvantage of such varieties because they needed more water and fertilizer, and also frequent weeding was required. Okay, but the effect of Green Revolution was quite evident by a greater production of crops during the subsequent years. Now we are going to discuss the last topic, and that is very, very interesting: nitrogen cycle.
Okay.
I hope you are not getting bored with this crop production. It is taking a long time.
It sure is.
But I am sure that study and patience both will bring good result. So, now you can focus on nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen, as you know, when we were discussing the fertilizers, nitrogen is used by life forms to carry out many functions of life. Okay, because see, they are needed for the formation of proteins, amino acids and nucleic acids. And so, it is very, very important for the plant life. What does air contain maximum? What is the maximum portion of air, atmospheric air?
Nitrogen.
Yes, and do you know what is the percentage of it?
70.
78%, yes.
Kind of close guess.
Yeah, yet nitrogen in its gaseous form is almost entirely unusable to life. You can't use it. It must first be converted or fixed into a more usable form. Mainly it's the soluble nitrates that can be used. So the process of converting the nitrogen into a form in which it can be used by plants is called nitrogen fixation. You see this? Yes. In nature, what happens? This is done. Do you remember I had told you about rhizobium bacteria?
Yeah.
Yes. They are the bacteria that can fix the nitrogen in nature. Then there are other bacteria also that return the nitrogen back to the atmosphere, and they are called the denitrifying bacteria. Okay, so this is how the nitrogen is first fixed by the nitrifying bacteria, and then it is replenished back to the atmosphere by the denitrifying bacteria, and this cycle goes on forming the nitrogen cycle in the atmosphere. Okay, so first let us see the nitrogen cycle involves some steps. That is, first nitrogen fixation has to be there. Can I tell you? There are different steps that are involved in the nitrogen cycle. First, the nitrogen has to be fixed from the atmosphere, and this fixation of the, can you please note down for me?
Sure.
The process of converting free nitrogen gas of the atmosphere into nitrogen compounds is called nitrogen fixation. Okay. Now what happens? This atmospheric nitrogen, when the lightning happens, such high temperature that results causes a reaction between nitrogen and oxygen present in the air to produce the oxides of nitrogen. Now they dissolve in the rainwater, forming dilute nitric acid. That is why rain is very important for the crops, because that is the time when the lightning is happening. The nitrogen is combining with the oxygen and forming this dilute nitric acid. Now this nitric acid will react with the alkaline soil and turn into nitrates. Okay. Biological nitrogen fixation also, this was atmospheric nitrogen fixation, and then biological, I have already told, it is the conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrogen compounds by these living organisms which are called as rhizobium bacteria, and they are already present in the soil. They are also found in the roots of the leguminous, that is the pea plant, groundnut, beans. They have the ability to fix the atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates. Now, the nitrates that have been formed are assimilated. Assimilation means collection. Okay. The plants absorb these nitrates from the soil and convert them into plant proteins. The nitrogen passes from plant to the herbivores that are eating them, and then to the carnivores who are eating the herbivores. And this process of conversion of inorganic nitrogen compounds into organic compounds that become a part of the living organism is called nitrogen assimilation. Okay. Now since they have collected in the living things in the form of proteins, what will happen now? When the plants and animals die, their remains are converted into ammonia and ammonium compounds. How? Because again, bacteria and fungi, the decomposers are acting on them, no? So the process of conversion of the complex organic compounds like proteins into ammonia is known as ammonification. Okay. So once ammonification happens, these nitrogen compounds, they are taken up by the plants and rest are converted into nitrates by the nitrifying bacteria, and the process of conversion of ammonia into nitrates is called nitrification. Ammonia is getting converted into nitrates, no? Now, as I already told you, that there are denitrification bacteria also present. So these nitrates that are absorbed by the plants, some of it, the nitrates are absorbed. What happens to the remaining? The remaining are converted to free nitrogen gas.
And released into the atmosphere.
Yes, by the denitrifying bacteria. So the cycle continues with the help of the nitrifying and the denitrifying bacteria present in the nature. Okay. Like plants, animals also provide us with different kinds of food. We should not forget, when we were discussing about this crop production, we had already told the food derived from both plants and animals. We have at length discussed about the food produced by plants. Now what about the food that is provided to us by the animals? The breeding, feeding and caring of domestic animals for food and other purpose is called, this is a separate branch called animal husbandry. And the kind of animals that provide us with food are the meat and egg yielding animals such as the goat, poultry animals, chicken, duck and turkey. Turkey although we do not have here in India. Fish, sheep and pig are other animals which become a part of the food for people. The large scale rearing of fish. Do you know what is the large scale rearing of fish known as?
Fishiculture?
No, it's a spicy culture because fishes are Pisces there. And milk yielding animals are also there, such as cow, buffalo, goat and camel. Now milk is used to prepare a large number of products. As you relish the butter, cheese, curd and ghee, why do you forget that they come from the animals? Then don't forget the stings of the honeybees, because they provide the honey also. And do you know what is the rearing of honeybees on a large scale known as?
Oh, I forgot the name.
Yes.
Let me remember.
What is it?
Apiculture.
Yes, it's called apiculture. I would just want to introduce one nice term. What is mulching? Munching. I'm not talking about munching.
Oh.
I'm talking about mulching. Do you know what happens? The weeds are a big threat to the crops of the farmers. And what they do, once these dead remains of the plants are there, the harvest is done and all, they cover the ground with that barks or with the leaves. So they lock the moisture from reaching the ground, and also the sunlight does not enter there, and what happens, the weeds are unable to grow. So this process is known as mulching. Okay, so with this information we would close down on this big chapter of crop production. Bye everyone, see you in the next chapter. All the best. Keep preparing. Any queries, please let us know so that we can again revisit on those topics to make it easier for you.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.